Believe it or not, I gave myself a blister trying to break in my first pair of Louboutins from home. So if you're at home right now and you're struggling to break in that first pair and you're wondering if maybe you should use a shoe stretcher, stick around for this video because I'm going to help you decide whether or not a shoe stretcher is right for you. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I use them to break in my Louboutins safely to protect both my feet but also my red bottoms. I'm also going to explain the differences between the Cedar and the metal. These are fantastic. They're the top 2 rated shoe stretchers available, but they're very, very different. So I'm going to explain the pros and cons to each so that you can decide which one is right for you. So let's get started. Louboutin has 3 types of leather, and I would only suggest using the shoe stretcher on 2 of them, and that would be the embossed and the patent. So with the Napa, number 1, you probably don't need to because it is so soft and it breaks in so much faster than the patent and the embossed that you really honestly probably don't even need to use a shoe stretcher on it. You can try, it's just you're going to want to be very gentle with it because it will definitely mold a lot quicker. If you can see this one right here, there's like that big bubble out thing. That's from me breaking them in, and I did not use a shoe stretcher. So these definitely break in very quickly. And like I said, it's not likely you'll need the shoe stretcher on a Napa. And then if you do, you're going to want to be very, very careful and just keep an eye on it and make sure that you don't overdo it. The embossed, which the embossed is kind of in between the Napa and the patent. So I think it is Napa underneath, but because it's got that embossed layer, it's a little bit harder and holds its shape better than the Napa. So I did actually use my shoe stretcher on these. This was my first pair that I gave myself a blister trying to break in. So I ended up using the shoe stretcher on them. But again, if you're a pro at breaking in your shoes, you might not need to use the shoe stretcher, but it definitely helped out tremendously for me. So I used my shoe stretcher on embossed. And then finally, patent. So patent is a lot harder to break in. It's great because it holds its shape and it looks beautiful over, decades, but like it's really, really hard to break in. Extremely hard. This one I have used, you can't even tell, but I have used my shoe stretchers excessively on this shoe, and you still honestly can barely even see like a dent out there. It's crazy. So you will definitely benefit from using a shoe stretcher on your patent. So the Cedar shoe stretcher is honestly my favorite. I really love this one. There are, of course, a couple of cons to it, which is why I ended up purchasing the metal one and keeping that one as well. But to start off with, let's talk about the positives. Number 1, this shoe stretcher is very light. That's actually important because what I found with the metal shoe stretcher was when I would try to leave it in a shoe overnight, the shoe would want to fall over because the stretcher was so heavy. And that doesn't happen with this one. So I can literally just stick it in the shoe and it'll hold itself up like that and I'll have no issues. So I really like that about the Cedar shoe stretcher. The other thing is that if you notice, there's all these little holes. These are places where you can put targeted attachments. So this stretcher comes with 2 sets of targeted attachments, and you have a really, really big one, you have a kind of a medium-sized one, and then you have this tiny little ball. These are amazing, and this is primarily what I use the shoe stretcher for, is targeting specific spots. So if you're noticing that maybe your pinky toe is hurting or a specific spot on your big toe, you can use the little targeted attachment to specifically target that area. So it will only stretch that little area where you need it, not the whole shoe. So for me, that makes this something that I absolutely have to have. I find a lot more often that I don't need the whole shoe box to be stretched, just that one little spot that's bothering me. The other thing I like is I like the fact that this is cedar because cedar is odor absorbing. It doesn't smell like cedar. Like this honestly doesn't smell like anything. But when you leave it in your shoe overnight, your shoe smells fabulous in the morning. It smells like it's brand new. No matter how much you've worn it, it smells brand new. So sometimes I honestly will just leave this in a shoe overnight, not stretch or anything, but basically just leave it like that in my shoes if I want them to smell more fresh in the morning. So that's a benefit that you wouldn't think of with a shoe stretcher, but it does. It's honestly amazing for freshening up your shoes. So the one con I noticed about this shoe stretcher, and it's a really big one, is that it comes up too far in the shoe, and then it's also very thick on the side. It's actually at the max width for this shoe. What that means is that you can accidentally overstretch the shoe and basically stretch it on the sides, not just the toe box. And that's very bad because you're going to end up falling out of the shoe because it's going to be super wide on the sides of your feet. You're supposed to click it 2 or 3 times. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So this is the max. This is 3, and you can see it's like right here, it's kind of bowing out a bit. That means I'm going to end up stretching the side of my shoe if I keep it in here like this. What I end up doing with this one is I only go to 2, I don't go up to 3, and then I'll actually stick like a sock or something underneath here, or maybe like a washcloth to tilt it up, and then that will help keep it out of the shoe a little bit, if that makes sense. So you'll put a sock in there and it'll hold it up like that, and then it won't stretch the side of your shoe. So if you look at the metal one does not stretch the sides of your shoe. It really only comes up to about right here inside the shoe, and this part comes out farther, but it's out of the shoe naturally. So it's not going to stretch the side of your shoe very much. I've opened this one up the maximum amount. I've opened it up 3 clicks, and you can see that it's not stretching the side of the shoe. So that's why I ended up getting this metal one, was because I was trying to prevent accidentally stretching out the sides of my shoe. The number 1 pro is that because this is metal, it is a lot harder of a stretch, and so you can use this on patent and get a really, really good stretch out of the patent. So this one is incredibly heavy. It's basically a weapon. So if anybody ever breaks into your house, just grab this shoe stretcher and like beat them over the head with it, and you'll probably be fine. But it's incredibly heavy. I don't really like that about it because I did notice that when I was trying to stretch shoes, it won't hold itself up. So you can see it's kind of like, if I just let it go a little bit, it's trying to fall over. So when I do stretch shoes with this one, I usually have to set the shoe up against the wall just to make sure that it doesn't fall over in the middle of the night. So that is a con. Another thing that I don't like is that you were supposed to be able to use this to stretch the length of the shoe. Look at how thick that is. This is the normal width of this shoe. So you can see it's kind of bowed in a bit, even though I've been breaking them in, it's still fairly thin. But if I stick this in here and try to stretch the length, look at that. There's just no practical use for this attachment right here. I would never ever, do not buy this thinking that you're going to use it to maybe lengthen the shoe a little bit. If the shoe's a little small, it's not gonna work. All you're gonna do is stretch out that heel, and then you're never gonna be able to wear the shoes because your heels will be slipping out anyways. So that is definitely a con. I feel like it's kind of a false advertising that they said that you can stretch the length of the shoe, because you really can't, and still be able to wear the shoe, not with this attachment. The other thing I don't like is there's not that many holes for the targeted attachments. If you're having one specific spot on your feet that hurts, good luck. Hopefully one of these holes matches that spot, but I've more than often found that it doesn't. So these are kind of useless. The other thing is they do give you these little target attachments, but they're all the same size. They're kind of the medium size. There's no like little ball or anything to get at your pinky toe. So for me, there's no point to these, because more than likely you're gonna overstretch that part of the shoe if you use these. Again, you don't have enough holes, so you really can't pinpoint a specific spot on the shoe that you want. And then these are one size, so you're just never gonna get the stretch that you really need. So if I do a targeted stretch for a specific spot on my shoe, I always use the Cedar, not this one. These are basically worthless. The other thing is I don't know why they give you so many, because it's not like you're gonna fill all the holes with these and then jam this into your shoe and try to stretch it, because that's just way too much. So yeah, I don't get what these are even for. Again, that's, to me, is kind of false advertisement. You really cannot do effective targeted stretching with this stretcher. So that's pretty much the cons for both of these. The other thing I wanted to show you, which will probably impact your decision, is look at the toe boxes. This one, if you notice, is kind of thinner, and this one is a little bit more round. I do use this one on my Hot Chicks and my Pigalle Folies, even though they're pointed. So I do use it on it. I mean, it works good. If I stretch it out, it works just fine. So you can use this on the pointed toe shoes, but you may want to get a deeper stretch into that pointed toe shoe, and if that's the case, you're going to need the metal one. For the metal one, you can even tell, like, it got way farther up into the toe box. So for pointed toe shoes, although you can use the Cedar one, you're probably going to want to use this one if you're trying to stretch up a little bit deeper into that toe box. The other thing I'll say too is that if you have narrow feet, honestly, if you have narrow feet, you're probably not going to need to stretch your Louboutins, but if you do, because this one is a little bit more narrow, I do think this will work better for you. You can stretch a little bit further and not stretch the sides of your shoes. So if you have narrow feet, you're probably going to want this one, if you even need it at all, because I really feel like if you have narrow feet, you don't need to stretch your shoes. But if you have narrow feet and you're working on a shoe and it's just too much and you think you might need a shoe stretcher, I would try this one because it is narrower than this one. If you have round toe pumps, it's going to be different. If you have round toe pumps, you need this one. The other one won't work. So this one, I'm just going to put it in there, but you can see it fits the toe box nicely. This one, it will stretch it, but it's just very awkward because it's so pointy. I can actually like pinch the sides of my shoe in right here. So if you use this one on the round toe, you're going to stretch out right here, but you're not really going to stretch out up here. So if your toes are kind of up here at the side and you need to stretch the sides a little bit, this one is not going to work because it's just too narrow up here, and you're going to have to stretch this out so far where then you're going to stretch this part too far just to try to stretch up here, if that makes sense. So for the round toe, I would definitely go with the Cedar. It's going to be your best friend for round toe pumps. So just to recap, if you have pointed toe shoes, either one of these will work well. This one will just get in a little bit deeper into that toe box. So it depends on how deep of a stretch you want in that shoe. This one I would only use on embossed or patent because it is so much harder. But this one you could use on patent, embossed, or Napa. Again, I don't usually stretch out my Napa, but if you feel like you need to, this one's your best bet. If you need targeted attachment stretching, meaning if you need to target a specific spot that's hurting on your feet that you want stretched in the shoe, this one. This one, highly unlikely you're going to be able to target it effectively. You may overstretch that area of the shoe if you use the metal one. So definitely use this one. Now, if you are worried about stretching the side of your shoe, you're going to be very careful with this one if you use it, and only do maybe 2 clicks. I would not go to max with this one. This one, you can open it up a little bit further because it's not going to stretch the side of your shoe. And then if you have a round toe pump, you really should use this one. This one's not going to be effective enough because it's so much narrower, so you're going to want to go with this one. So when you stretch your shoes, you do want to use shoe stretch spray. You don't have to, but this kind of preps the leather to make it easier for it to stretch. It'll stretch a little bit quicker, but it also softens the leather. So I feel like it kind of protects the leather from cracking, if that makes sense. But anyways, I would just use this. You spray it in maybe 1 or 2 times into your shoe, and then kind of wipe the excess because you don't want it to be drenching when you put the shoe stretcher in. But you will do that, and let's say my feet are kind of hurting right here. I'll put the shoe stretcher in, and then I'll kind of figure out where that hole is. And then I will put the targeted attachment right there, wherever I think that spot is that I'm hurting. And then you stick the shoe in, and then click it, 2 to 3 times. For this one, because it is the one that stretches up here, I only do 2 times with this one. But that way I can target that specific spot way up here and help, so that way when I start breaking in my shoes again, my feet aren't hurting. And then again, if I don't have a specific spot that's hurting, if it's just kind of the whole shoe in general and I want to stretch the whole shoe out a little bit, I'll usually use this one if it's a pointed toe pump, and I'll make sure it gets all the way up into the shoe. That way it stretches kind of far in the toe box. And then I keep this out because I just don't want this anywhere near stretching the inside of my shoe. And then I'll click it. Usually this one I'll do 3 times because I don't have a targeted attachment in it. And then that's usually what it looks like when I'm done with it. I will do that in the evening and kind of leave it overnight. The minimum you're supposed to leave it in is 6 hours. So definitely make sure it's at least 6 hours. I leave it overnight, so it ends up being closer to like 8 or 9, and then I will check it in the morning. If you're really nervous about it getting overstretched, I would try it during the day. I would wake up in the morning, I would put the shoe stretcher in, and then at 6 hours check it. I have honestly stretched my shoes a lot longer. I think the max was like 2 days, but that was because that specific shoe was just very small. It was really tight, and I just really needed that stretch. So each shoe is going to be different, so you're going to have to gauge how much you really need to stretch the shoe. So the other thing you can do is you can use the sock hack trick with the shoe stretcher. So when I'm breaking in my shoes, I usually put a sock on the front part of my feet and I bend it over, and then I put my feet in the shoe. That does help kind of stretch it a little bit further because the sock makes my feet thicker. But if you're worried maybe about this being too hard on the inside of your leather, you can put a sock on it to kind of cushion between the shoe stretcher and your shoe. So you'll put it on like that, and then you'll just put the shoe stretcher in your shoe and do your routine again. For this one, I like to do 3 clicks, but I would only do 2 clicks, you know, or maybe even 1, depending on how far you need to stretch the shoe, because the sock is going to be a little bit thicker, and so it's going to stretch the shoe a little bit further than if this didn't have the sock on it. But again, the sock is soft, it's a little more cushion, and it will kind of protect the leather. This video has been part of my series I'm doing on making my Louboutins comfortable for all day wear. If you haven't already, go ahead and watch my other 2 videos. I have a video on breaking in your shoes at home, and it includes a free downloadable tracker so that you can track your progress. And then if you're thinking about wearing your shoes to work, do not miss my Ultimate Comfort Guide video. I do wear mine to work every single day, and so in that video, I go into great detail about how I'm able to make that happen, and we'll pass on a lot of tips and tricks and hacks to make your Louboutins more comfortable for you as well. So I hope this helped and hope you have a great day. Bye!